Turn to housing. Indiana has a deficit of nearly 140,000 affordable and available rental homes, with only 34 units available for every 100 of the lowest income households, the second lowest rate in the Midwest. Additionally, in the last year alone, Indiana had nearly 71,000 eviction filings, nearly 1 in 10 Hoosier renter households. What investments are needed, and as governor, what strategies would you employ to make housing more affordable in our state?
So affordable housing along with childcare, rural broadband, that was that second tier of what I hear about, underneath education and healthcare. So I'm going to look at the entrepreneurs out there that build the homes that tell me that a lot of regulation coming from DC has added maybe 10% to the cost of homes, well intended, but it even exacerbates it to make it more out of reach. A local entrepreneur that runs the Cook Medical Group that has elevated that to his mission. How do you get an affordable 3-bedroom home built on a slab of 1,700 square feet that actually could be a starter home, which means 185 to maybe 2.25. Well, that's been out of reach with inflation. He found a way to do it actually during COVID. Has actually done it in Spencer, French Lick or West Baden, and Bloomington. So it can be done. But businesses who benefit from the workforce are going to have to be part of the equation, just like they need to be part of the equation when it comes to workforce training. Don't expect government to do it all and then complain about the fact your taxes are going up. So I will take an entrepreneurial approach, make sure that our state government isn't doing things to make it harder. I'll look at permitting, all the things where contractors have to interface with our own state government. Keep the practical stuff in place, speed it up, but try to unleash the entrepreneurial spirit, the problem solvers. And what he found is if you could get local jurisdictions to help stub into utilities, it took enough cost out of that home to where you could do it at an affordable price. So maybe learn from what a brilliant entrepreneur did to tell us what can be done.
You know, I read, I think it was yesterday morning, that it is now in some parts of the state cheaper to buy a house than it is to rent one. And I'm going to say we have to start with property taxes, because real estate investors are not going to pay rising property taxes without passing that cost on to their renter. And the reality is as property tax assessments keep going up so that the government can collect, whether it be local government or county government, they want to collect property taxes so they can go do a lot of these vanity projects that don't necessarily help the individual citizen. And the reality is that those property taxes keep going up. That affects renters, in my opinion, probably more harshly than it does a homeowner. And homeowners, we all know how harshly it affects us, right? And when you look at your property taxes, whether here again you're a homeowner or an investor, being escrowed into your mortgage, if you have your rental property on a mortgage, then that represents $100, $200, $300, maybe even $400 a month. And so if you're passing that on to a renter, that's hard to handle. And so, in my opinion, the first thing we need to do is address property taxes and get that under control. And not just for the homeowner, not just for senior citizens or veterans, and I'm a veteran, but for everybody. Every Hoosier homeowner, every Hoosier real estate owner who has renters, we need to address this for everybody because it affects everybody. And we also need to look really, really hard at why we have the continually rising housing costs that we have. This is an element of inflation. And inflation, here again, most economists will say in one form or another, they'll say that the basic cause of inflation is government spending money we don't really have. And whether it's the federal government, the state government, your county government, your local government, this idea that it's better for government to spend money than it is for you and me to spend money is backward. So we've really got to, here again, refocus on what's right and what's best for the economy, not just what's right and what's best for a group of politicians, donors.
Well, in Indiana, in particular Indianapolis, has one of the poorest renter protection policies and practices in the nation. And that doesn't happen overnight. So working with our local levels to hold folks accountable, but also what can we do from the state lens to work with our local leaders to make sure our renters are protected. We also know too there needs to be an incentive to build and to construct affordable housing. And I come from Henry County, and I was just talking to a builder not too long ago, and they were so excited to come to Henry County, and there's a lot of poverty in Henry County, and they were telling me they were building affordable housing, which we need and we welcome. And I said, where is it? And when they explained it to me, it was in a housing area that I'm like, I'm not sure that's affordable. And I said, what do you deem affordable? How are you defining affordability? And it was around $350,000. And I said, I'm not sure that's affordable, but walk me through that. So making sure we're talking about apples to apples and making sure we're taking care of those folks who need that housing, making sure we have fair lending practices and incentives to get people into homes that want to get into homes. I mean, there's just a whole lot that needs to be addressed, but we cannot do it alone at the State House. We need to have our local partners. We also need to look at other states that they have. It's a national issue, but there are some states that are seeing some movement with some great programs that let's steal from some of those great programs, their ideas, and let's build upon those, and things that maybe they've tried that didn't work, let's stay away from that, or maybe we need to tweak that. But this is definitely a space as we travel that we need to make sure that we are addressing. The other thing that I want to mention in our property tax relief plan, part of that was to keep people in their homes that are trying to stay in their homes, whether it's poverty or whether it's our senior citizens who are on fixed incomes. So having some of those tax breaks to free up some of those dollars to address some of that property tax issue is huge. So there's common sense ways to approach it, and we're willing to do that, but we can't do it alone from the governor's office, and we would need partnerships.